Look, it's time to rock. It's the Sunday show. I'm here with Brad, the backdoor man, Cook. Happy Father's Day, brother.
Thank you very much. Happy Father's Day to everyone. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers.
Awesome. Good to see you, bro. It only seems like only a couple of hours ago, bro, that
Wait a second.
I spent some time with you.
Oh no. Oh no, geez, mate, you've got blood out of me this weekend, haven't you?
Yeah. And well, speaking of blood, look who we found, ladies and gentlemen. Look who we found hanging around the back door, sniffing around for a couple of crumbs.
It's a good. Oh, I see. I'm now being brought in, am I, as a special guest? Stop that now. Stop that.
Oh, goodness.
So you should have booing more than I've been away for ages. I've left you to your own devices. And look what you've been doing. Look what you've been doing.
Simon,
I've been noted it.
Don't tempt him. He'll put booing in there. Don't worry.
That's much more what I deserve.
Good to see you.
So how are we, guys? How are we after this week's latest triumphs that you've been having in spite of me not being here? Tremendous views on the Deep Purple thing. Really well done. Steve Rosen, fantastic.
Yep.
So tremendous work, guys. Really good work.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, no,
proud to be a part of it.
We had some good shows while you're away, but you were missed, Simon, and I'll just take the opportunity now while the three of us together to congratulate us all, everyone in the chat, everyone here, for the subscribers. I think we're at 7.2k at the moment, or 7. I'm not sure. It's around that. So we're over the 7k. Yeah. So congratulations, Simon and Andrew. That's massive,
fantastic,
massive feat. Well done.
Yeah, well, again, we keep saying it, don't we, guys? It's down to a team effort, clearly, and obviously the content, the fact that we, have a reasonably good show. We've got a lot of people, obviously, in the chat that share our links. We've also learnt a few lessons, Brad and Simon, too, on how to get our channel and our streams out there and get people watching them, and taking advantage of other social media platforms is definitely the key. And people just want to hang out and subscribe. So Brad and Simon, it's always humbling.
Yeah,
absolutely. And I think it's a testament to the content and what we do that people are subscribing, and people are enjoying our videos more than they ever have done before. So it's fantastic. So well done, team. But it's a team effort. We all do it. I mean, it's all down to us as as a team, and our guests and everybody else who comes on. We
had Zach, a well-known musician from Melbourne, a couple of days ago. That worked really well. Got a few views on that too. Simon picked up some local Australian subs because of that as well. So, it's always good. It's always great.
Yeah. And I also Mr. Glyn's pickups as well. Nice to see he's recovered from his travails, which is good. But also, Andrew, I thought that thing you sent me about the traffic on his website had gone up. What did he say? 30%.
Yeah.
After the show, that's
Yeah. So we've got some good news, ladies and gentlemen, to share with you here on the channel. The channel now can officially say that we have our first channel sponsor, and it's Mr. Glyn's Pickups. He's agreed to sponsor the channel, so we've taken that on board, and the fact that he's a local business here based in New Zealand. We always wanted to do something, Brad and Simon, didn't we? That was close to where one of us were always going to be. So,
that's really cool.
Yeah. So he's agreed to be our first official channel sponsor. So, you know, that means something for us. You know, that's a positive step in the right direction for what we want to do here with our small channel. So, thank you, Glenn, for doing that. And we're going to do a promo video. We're going to sort something out over the next couple of weeks and have a promo video that we can share. And, you know, obviously we want to take a lot of people over there to Glen as well. While we're talking about promotions too, guys, we also want to make it aware to people that we're working with 2 other parties here that are close to the channel. Jeff and Bob with their Fleetwood Mac book, who've been on our channel a couple of times. We're going to include a link to their book for pre-order. And obviously Brad and I were humbled to have the company of Steve Rosen join us. You know, and that was amazing, Simon, because, you know, he's this guy that's a legend in his own right. I would have just been happy to have him on talking about what he's done, but he's on talking about Eddie Van Halen with Brad and I and everybody. So we're going to do everything we can too on our channel to help him get that book out. One thing that people need to know too, and I want to pass this on to you guys. I had a conversation with Keith Campbell, who's very close to Steve, after the show. And it became apparent to us when we were interviewing Steve, be patient, people. You know, with the book, I know that it's been a long time. He explained to Brad and I that he was re-editing that book. He was going over that book with a fine-tooth comb, which is exactly what we want him to do. He wants to present us with something that's not going to have no mistakes. But also, Simon, he's doing that all by himself. He's got no one helping him.
No one helping him. No. That's the self-publishing thing, isn't it? Publishing thing.
Correct.
Which is, you know, it's a weird dichotomy, isn't it, between the sort of the punk ethic of do it yourself, but also having to do it yourself. You know, having to go through it, re-edit it. You don't have a publisher behind you with editors, with people, you know, proofreaders and all that. You have to do it yourself, and I can see that's, you know, if you want to get it right, it's going to take some time, isn't it, and stuff to sort it out.
Well yeah,
So
you know, he's doing it himself to the extent where he's licking the stamps, putting the books in the courier boxes, and putting the addresses on himself. So, you know,
wow.
Wow.
And well done to him. You know, well done to him. He's done an amazing job so far, getting where he's got to. So, hearing this story, you know, how it eventuated to turn into a book was amazing, Andrew.
Yeah.
It's similar to stories I've heard of people, like even the Beatles, members of the Beatles, where they've woken up from a dream, written stuff down, and it turns into a song.
Yeah.
You know, and he's turned all these thoughts on it into a book. So, but I found it remarkable, the story, how he had to go through all the tapes and all the stuff, and then replace them in his mind. Well, that was in '82. That was because he didn't document them like date wise and things like that. So, a little lesson there for anyone who wants to document, you know, anyone's career, or if they're interviewing people, always document the dates on everything.
Record keeping, yes.
I guess if you're saving it to a computer, it will save the date and time for you anyway. But yeah, always try and record the dates and times. But yeah, an amazing story, and I really enjoyed that, Andrew. That was great.
Yeah. Me too. I watched about half of it whilst driving to Bristol and back. Listen to half of it anyway.
Can I just add one thing on that subject, guys, before we move on to the next part of the intro? So it freaked me out, Simon and Brad and everyone in the chat too, that he's going to include some of the tricky parts of Eddie's life as well. You know, he's going to give us the complete story according to Steve Rosen. So, top marks for that. Again, I was talking to Keith offline about that, and you know, Keith said something really, really important. He said this is where Van Halen fans are going to have to unite around Steve Rosen and kind of protect him, because some people are going to probably come out and attack him because of some of these. Well, and we don't know what they are. He hasn't told us behind in the green room what they are. But I think, you know, Keith Campbell again, you know, wise words, you know. Yeah, that kind of makes sense, you know, that we might have to, as a community, as the authentic part of the community, protect the guy, because, again, I don't want to sound like we are aristocratic in our opinion, but this is exactly what we want. We want this kind of book, don't we, Simon? We don't want the candy floss version.
No, it's got to be a proper rounded, you know, to be a serious book, it's got to be a proper rounded portrait of the person. And that's got to be warts and all. And clearly, you know, Eddie went through some difficult times and some, you know, for him, and, you know, as a result probably of the fame and of the, you know, the madness and things, but came out the other side. And I think that personal journey is as important as anything else, as, you know, in describing him as a man. You know, as a person, as a musician, you know, and that's part of his journey on it, you know, and you can't, I think it's, you know, that you can't ignore those things, you know, as if you're going to write about, you know, biography type book about it, you can't ignore those things. I think, you know, that they have to have a context, around it. But I think that's the important bit. But I think, you know, that to ignore them, just as you say, to have a candid loss version, I don't think it's not doing him any favors either, really, you know, because, you know, those stories, you know, if they inspire somebody else, you know, to you know, to sort their lives out in a particular way, I think it's important to you know, for those stories to be out there, so that, you know, if they inspire people, then that's a good thing, isn't it? You know, I was listening yesterday to a podcast called The Raconteurs with Guy Pratt and Gary Kemp from Spandau Ballet, and they were talking to Joe Elliott, and clearly one of the things that came up was Rick Allen's, you know, accident where he lost one of his arms, you know, and he said that Rick Allen still gets letters from people saying, "You've inspired me to get on with my life, even though I've had a limb amputated, you know, to go running, do whatever, do these things," you know, and you know, so in a sense, that's the important part of Rick Allen's story, you know, was losing an arm, but then going back to drumming and then working out how to do something, you know, and I think that those stories are important because they inspire people. And I think it's the same with Eddie Van Halen, you know, it's, you know, it's an inspirational story, you know, of them coming from Holland, you know, as immigrants and setting up and making success of their musical lives, and but that has to be in the context of them as a whole person. So I hope he does do that, and I hope that, you know, as Keith says, good work, Keith, you know, that the community protects him, you know, stops the loonies and the nutters from going off, you know, because as you say, it's going to happen, isn't it? You know, Van Halen seems to be particularly has some particularly wild and crazy people in that community, and, you know, going off on it, because, you know, it doesn't make him less of a human being, less of a great person, you know, absolutely doesn't, those things, you know.
Speaking of inspiring, Brad, what did you think of the tribute concert that we were talking about before we went live? You were gonna mention some words.
Well, obviously you know, it was fantastic to see Wolfgang Van Halen come out and play On Fire, I think it was, and Hot for Teacher. Obviously in Mammoth, he's never going to play Van Halen, from what he's obviously told us and told everyone. Whether he does in the future or not, who knows? But, you know, it was a nice little tribute to his dad, but also because Taylor Hawkins loved Van Halen so much, and he played those songs with his other band. So that was just a really nice little thing to see. And there were some wonderful performances there. And being a father on Father's Day, to see Taylor's sons playing drums was, you know, a bit of a tearjerker. to be honest with you. You know, got goosebumps watching his son, especially his oldest son, who has the same sort of hair and he plays the same way as Taylor. It just looked like he was Taylor Hawkins playing, especially when they showed camera angle from behind where you can see the Wembley's crowd and he's playing drums. And it was like, wow, that could be Taylor sitting there. And but the one thing that I want everyone to take away, if you don't watch any other part of the concert, watch times like these, the very intro of that, and that's that will, you know, that sets the cat amongst the pigeons there. Dave Grohl, you know, you can see he's a real man. He bleeds, he cries, he chokes up, he can't sing the song at the start. He gets through it, he pushes through it, but you can see that there was a real love and a bond there between himself and Taylor, and he obviously loves and misses the guy like a brother. So, but that one part of that performance, if anything, was the highlight for me. Just to see that, just to see, you know, Dave Grohl has obviously he's had a bit of loss in his life with people in bands and things like that. So this is probably a really good one for him, unfortunately.
Such a pertinent song as well, isn't it?
Yeah.
That song's such a great song for that sort of occasion. Absolutely. Yeah.
But on a more happier note, Simon, I think you've got some
I just say one thing about that. The other thing I noticed is that how much fun Wolfgang Van Halen seemed to be having doing his dad's stuff. You know,
smile.
You know, I don't think he should. I don't think he should do it in Mammoth. I think he should keep away from it as part. You know, because you know you've got to forge your own musical legacy, and I think he's all completely right about that, not doing it. But I think as a one-off thing to just go out and as a kind of, you know, tribute to his dad and stuff. And he looked like he was having a lot of fun doing it. You know, going over with Dave Grohl and kind of, you know, standing together and kind of riffing it up was, you know, that's what you want to see, don't you? You want to see people enjoying themselves doing it, you know, and not feeling like it's a burden. And I think sometimes people try and make it a burden on him. Why aren't you doing your dad's stuff?
I really
hope appropriate.
I really hope on the next date that they've got for the Taylor tribute that actually Wolf might play drums on a song. That would be fantastic to see because he's a fantastic But I think it would be cool to see him do more Van Halen stuff in the future, especially if there was such a thing as a tribute to his father, which doesn't seem like it's ever going to happen, but we can all pray and hope. And you know, why get in Joe Satriani or someone like that when you can get Wolf in and play like the way he did today? So that's something to think about.
Yeah, it's quite a burden for him, though, isn't it? You know, to do a whole gig of his dad's stuff, one feels. Yeah. But
clickbait? Is this clickbait? The guitar's clickbait.
The guitar. Well, I just wanted to show this, guys. This is my old faithful Stratocaster that I've had for 34 years. Will you stop that? See, I leave them for 5 minutes and they start messing about at the back. But I've had this stuff for 34 years, and I wore out the frets the previous set, so I've had it refretted while I was away. Over August, in fact, and I took it to. I was, you know, clearly quite reticent about who I was going to send it to, you know, because I've had it for such a long time, and I sort of ummed and ahed, and eventually I rang up a guy called Hugh Price who did up. I don't know if any of you have seen this. Chris Buck's 1962 Strat that he bought. Yeah, the one he bought in a house sale in I think it's Pontypridd. You know, lot 32 is a collection of Tupperware. Lot 33, 1962 Fender Stratocaster in very bad condition. So I rang him up and went over to his house and dropped it off, and then went back and picked it up. And he's done a fantastic job of it. It's beautifully done, beautifully rounded, rolled edges to the frets. It feels really good, but it feels like it's never been done. If that's not a paradox. Yeah, feels like a new guitar. Feels beautiful, and it plays really nicely. And he set it up really nicely, and done a fantastic job. And you know, done me proud, and sort of looking after it, making sure. I mean, the fretboard, he had to do quite a lot of work to the fretboard and things, but it's beautiful, and that you would never know if it had been refretted, except they're very new and it's quite an old guitar. So anyone in the UK who wants to have their guitar refretted, Hugh Price Guitar, he's got a website. You can contact him. He's got a phone number on there, and he's a brilliant guy. He's just had an extension built on his house, right, to do the guitar repairs. And this is the way you get an extension, guys. Okay, it's a bit of marital advice for you if you need it. If you need an extension, what you do is you start doing guitar repairs on the dining room table. Apparently, you can get an extension quite quickly. You get agreement for one quite quickly if you start doing that. But what's fantastic is, so he's got upstairs, 2 rooms upstairs. One of the rooms upstairs has got a hatch in the ceiling. So in the roof, he's got a spray booth. He's got, so he can spray guitars and can do refins on guitars and stuff, nitro refins and things, because he does that as well. But, yeah, it's really funny. Yeah, I've got a spray booth in the roof. Of course you have. But yeah, he's a fantastic guy, and he was before me. He was doing a guitar neck for a British blues guitarist called Ainsley Lister, who you might have heard of. He's a really good player. So and Chris Buck, so I'm in really good company. But he's a fantastic guy, and I recommend him wholeheartedly if anyone in the UK wants to have their guitar refretted. He's done a beautiful job on mine. Beautiful job.
Well, if you want, Simon, if you want to attach, send me his website or something like that. We can attach that to this video. So if anybody's watching on replay and wants to check out what the Rock Professor has said, we'll have that attached here somewhere on the channel. But look, I just want to jump in and just agree with what the Rock Professor has said. I got my Clapton Strat refretted at the beginning of the year, and my gosh, it was like a new guitar. Just the tone. It's amazing what a refret can do to the acoustic qualities of a guitar, isn't it, Simon?
Yeah, it's fantastic, and so much so that are you doing my black one as well now? Because that needs a refret as well. Here we go. Well, they're the 2 guitars that I got. They're the oldest ones, and they need it. None of the others need it, but they needed it. So and having found somebody really good to do it, and awesome. I'm really pleased that he's taken them on, and he's such a nice guy. So fantastic. So Hugh Price, thank you so much.
Okay. So can we get you back to work? Can we get can we get to do a shout out?
Work.
We'll get you back to work. Yeah.
I'll do the yes. Look, we better do a shout out to the poor old people in their chat who've been here for ages, like banging on.
He's forgotten. He's forgotten what he's here for.
So I forgot 3 weeks away. See, I've lost already. Anyway, sorry guys. Yes, so we're a bit of a longer preamble this week, but we're getting to it. So good morning to Tim Thomas, Derek Clapton. I think Derek's gone off to start his day and do something sensible. So good morning to you both. Jazz Thunder 50, Jim, I'll try and have a little clip of me playing later. It's hard to find the space to do it, but I'll see if I can do. Nelson, of course, Nelson Rodriguez, brilliant. Johnny Heartbreaker, morning Johnny. Gret Zeppelin, fantastic to see you guys. John ZD351, morning John. Lots of great comments here. They've been fantastic going on. Hugh Caldwell, morning Hugh. Looking forward to you being on the show for your Jimi Hendrix. That's going to be excellent. I'm really looking forward to that. I think that's Johnny Bean. Good morning, Johnny. So hopefully that's everybody. I think who's made some comments in the chat. So good morning to you all. I hope we're all good, and it's great to be back. And
awesome.
Just a quick shout out to our friend Warren. I don't know if anyone's heard from him not heard from him for months. So I hope he's all right. So Warren, we're still thinking of you, mate, and I hope you're good. And also, I'll do a shout out I'll do a shout out to one of the other people, Joe Wentz, who's got kidney cancer right now. So he's back down on operation on Friday. So thoughts and good vibes for Joe Wentz, because he's one of the old school guys on this, in this little community that we have. in his little outpost in North Carolina, I think he lives. So shout out to Joe, because he's a good guy.
Well done, Simon. Well done, Simon, for doing that, because I watched his video actually, and I made a comment, and I forgot. Well done, because we've been watching Joe and hanging out with Joe since we started this YouTube gig. So, 5 years ago we were and Joe was doing something regularly. He was on the Dave Stafford and R2 R3. They were doing a weekly show, plus he was doing his own stuff. He's built up a very good channel. He's got 12,000 subscribers there, Simon. He does a lot of good stuff. We'll include his channel on our channel page. What do you reckon?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think so. Yeah. He does lots of great playing, Joe. His thing is to play tracks that he loves and things like that, and he does a really great job of it. He's got a thing and he does it really well. Hats off to him.
What he does, what I particularly liked about him, Simon, is that he would play chords to a Van Halen song. He said, look, there's a lot of guys out there, and he would just show people how to do the chords, just to play along with it, because not everyone wants to play all the lead licks. So behind every song, as you know, there's a set of chords, Brad. And so that's what he used to do. So you play an A and a B and a C and a D. And that's what a lot of weekend warriors want to do, not necessarily pull out and play, the A minor pentatonic scale with that asymmetrical scale that he does with that mixolydian, and then you've got some Arab scale in there or something. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think that's one of Joe's greatest things, is that he makes you think, I could do that. I could play the chords along to that. I could do some of that, and that's fantastic. Opening it up, all those things to us everyman guitarists, not you, Brad, but me. And thinking, hey, we could do that. And I think that's one of his strongest suits, is doing all of that. And he clearly loves it, and all of that. Yeah, good shout out, bro. Good shout out, Rock Professor. Joe's got a good channel, good content, and he's built his channel up the hard way, like us. 12,000 subscribers. Well done, Joe.
He's been doing that a long time. So hats off to him, and so thoughts and good vibes to Joe, please, from everybody.
100%.
Yeah. Anyway, good. Okay, so. After that, and good morning to Ellen. Good morning, Ellen. I saw you sneaking in at the end there. Shall we begin, gentlemen, with our album this week that I've chosen? Bit of a niche album this week. It's I'm not sure that many people will have heard this, but I think it's important, as we do British electric blues stuff, that we cover a lot of the bases. I mean, I'm reminded of us doing Juicy Lucy. That couple of months ago, 2-3 months ago, that was really great, and I really enjoyed doing that, and not having really come across it before, not really, but digging into these things a bit below the levels of the Eric Claptons and the, which is fantastic to do, but I think going down a little bit is as interesting, and trying to record these things and trying to give them maybe a bit of a new audience. People go away and investigate them a bit and things. It's it's really cool. So yes, we're doing a Half Breed by the Keef Hartley band this week. So Keef Hartley is Keith as in Keith Richards, but he was born in a place called Plungington in northwest Preston. What a great name that is! And I have checked. It is. I did think to myself, Plungington, is that a real place? Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I've checked it on the Google Maps, and it is a real place. It's I know John. See, John Deddy, I haven't even heard of it. I clearly heard of it because I know about the Keef Hartley band. So he was the replacement for Ringo Starr and the drummer and Rory Storm and the Hurricanes when Ringo joined the Beatles. That's his first sort of kick up into drumming land, and subsequently played with and recorded with the Artwoods. Artwood being Ronnie Wood's brother, had a band called the Artwoods, and then clearly playing with John Mayall as well. John Mayall's Blues Breakers for a bit. He fantastic piece of trivia. You know how I like a bit of trivia. Apparently, his connection with Mike Vernon, he had a connection with Mike Vernon, was he played on countless sessions for visiting American bluesmen such as Little Walter, champion Jack Dupree, Jimmy Witherspoon, and the Informal Company featured on many other LPs that Mike Vernon produced for Decca and later Blue Horizon. And Mike had the job of preparing many American blues albums for their British release. Unfortunately, there were many already recorded in mono, but the market demanded stereo records by the mid to late 60s. So we were given the job of learning the tracks note for note, including all the bum ones, which Mike would then mix with the original master to create a stereo version. It was strange to do, but extremely well paid, so nobody seemed to mind. That's extraordinary. I'd never come across that as a thing at all. Amazing. It's he then, and we'll get into this, but he then formed the Keef Hartley Big Band, which is a mixture of jazz, blues, and rock, and it is famous, I think, for being the band who played at Woodstock, but do not appear in either the film or indeed the album of it, because I understand that there was a dispute with the group's manager who wanted $2,000 in cash up front to sign the release, and he wouldn't. Then clearly they didn't come up with the $2,000, so he never signed the release. So they were unable to film any of Keef Hartley Band's set at Woodstock. And as a result, there's no reason to put him on the Woodstock soundtrack album. So they are famously the only band who didn't benefit from appearing at Woodstock. And I think it probably...
Which is to their detriment.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it affected them completely. You know, their career would have been a lot different if they'd appeared in the film and appeared on the record. They would have been completely different. As it is, I think that they basically were sort of a bit of a cult band, really. I mean, I'd come across them a bit, but I hadn't really heard much of them. And certainly by the early 70s, when I started going to gigs, I never remember them coming round much, or being written about much. I knew the name, but not really anything else about them. So I can only conclude from that sort of anecdotal that I am. John ZD31 is the only person who's never played with John Mayall. I haven't either, John, but oh dear. So they released 5 albums and did various things, but I don't think they ever really broke through in any way, shape, or form, really. And and eventually by the 80s, Keef had given up, really, and he went off to make furniture, I think, and he died in 2017. No, 2011. Sorry, only age 67. So it's not. But he. I think this is a really interesting album. I think it's has much to recommend it as that blend of blues and jazz and and rock. You can see that kind of opening up, the experimentation that's been going on, and at that time musically, there are no barriers to what you can do, no barriers to what bands you could put together and things. So they had a trumpeter and a sax player. And they, made sort of 7 or 8 musicians that contributed: organ player, trumpet, tenor sax, and a violin even as well. So plenty of and that kind of fits in with his Keef Hartley's first great hero, which was Buddy Rich. Buddy Rich big band stuff. So clearly coming out of that jazz tradition stuff, which is fantastic. So. And Half Breed is their debut album, the Keef Hartley Band after he left John Mayall. So recorded in between the 7th of October and the 12th of December 1968 and released in 1969. So cool. So if do you have anything to add to that, Andrew or Brad?
Andrew, I can see you intently looking there.
I'm not going to pretend to know anything about this band, ladies and gentlemen. I discovered this band when I decided to immerse myself into the British Electric Blues. I've mentioned this before with you guys on previous shows around 2008, 2009. When Clapton came out with his biography, it's when I dedicated myself to know just about everything I could about this type of music that we celebrate. I hadn't heard of this band at all during my formative years at all. This name only came up in a conversation with a couple of guys I remember. We were talking about acts and bands, and there were a couple of other names that came up as well. And we won't detract the show because we're going to talk about some of these bands and their albums later on, and we'll keep that under our hats. But this was certainly one that came up. I went and checked it out on great old YouTube. And like a lot of people, I suppose, thought Keef Hartley band, I thought he was the guitar player or the vocalist, Didn't realise until, I think, Simon, a couple of years later, when I was having a conversation with Carl, and Carl said, no, the guy's the drummer or something like that, because I've never had the record, never had the CD.
No,
I've just listened to it on Spotify, so I never got the information that way. And there's a little bit of information out there on some websites, which is really, really good. And we've got some photos, obviously, that we'll throw up a little bit when the Rock Professor is ready. But I can't profess, Simon and Brad and people in the chat, to know a lot about this band at all, and I'm not going to pretend to. So, but I will say this is an important album, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, I'm sure, when we go and talk about the tracks. Brad?
Well, for many years, I'd never heard of this band. I'd never heard of anything, never heard this album.
Yeah.
I reckon probably maybe 10 years ago was probably the first time, and maybe the last time I actually listened to it. I thought the album was great. There was no particular reason why I didn't listen to it since then. But to be honest with you, it kind of escaped my mind, the band, because didn't play Woodstock. I didn't get promoted as playing on Woodstock. Kind of under the radar So doing this has been great because there's some fantastic performances on this record. Being a guitarist, I love the tone. I love everything about the guitar player in this band. He's great. And the feel, the way the band, I mean, he's a great drummer too, but the whole feel of the band is fantastic. So, but I'm not gonna pretend to say I'm a massive fan or anything. I've never really given this band the time of day that it probably deserves. But I safe to say, probably the whole world has never given this band the time of day that it deserves. Yeah,
correct.
Unfortunately for the band, they never really got the big break that they probably deserve, and it is a very important album because it's fantastic.
Yeah. I mean, me too, and I was around, much closer to the time of this, going to gig stuff. And I never really came across it either, never really heard it. I don't ever remember hearing it or anything like that at the time. So, but as I said earlier, I think one of the important things I think about, what we do here, one of the things I like is that you could choose an album that we've never heard, and go away and investigate it,
Sure.
And if off the back of this, other people go away and listen to it, and decide themselves whether they think it's any good or not. I think that's really cool. And I think, I feel no shame in not particularly have heard of it, heard of it, but not heard it before this week, but going in and investigating it new and, discovering it, as a new thing kind of thing. So I think it's really cool. So, I'm, which is kind of one of the reasons why I chose it,
Good.
As I say, like the Juicy Lucy record is in the same genre, really. I've not really heard of it before. So that was really good to do as well. So, yeah, fantastic. Okay, shall we start with the tracks?
Sure. Let's do it.
If you're ready, gentlemen. Yeah, okay. So the first track is a little vignette with John Mayall, John Mayall ringing up Keef to fire him from his position in the Blues Breakers. And I don't know how we're gonna, because on Spotify that the first, there's kind of 3 bits, kind of 2 or 3 bits joined together, aren't there? So I don't know if you want to do them all together, or I mean, I think we can dispense with the spoken bit. Is just a little little vignette. I don't know if you want to score that. I have given it a score, not a particularly high one, but because it's all right once, but it's not. It's one of those things. It's one of those things that's peculiarly a 60s thing, isn't it? That you think, oh, it'd be a great idea to put this little joke bit of you firing me, and I'll go off and start the band kind of thing. It kind of works. I think it probably works better at the time than it does now in retrospect. But it's not the important bit, fortunately. Yeah. And then I'm really the first bit is the confusion theme, which is a sort of minute-long instrumental. Opens with Keef playing tom-toms, and basically followed by a sort of solo guitar improvisation, apparently on an Eastern scale. I thought it was very kind of East-West and Mike Bloomfield, kind of sounded very much like that, as we've done that album recently. It, just a bit of fun, and just to start off the album. As I say, it's funny, isn't it, that the kind of that you'd sit there and you go, I know how I'm going to program this album. I'm going to have this little vignette at the beginning, and then I'm going to have this like 1 minute piece that doesn't, just a little instrumental piece before we get to the sort of the meat of something. So, whereas, the sort of modern thing would be, you start off with a kick-ass track and, with plenty of punch, plenty of get up and go, and kind of, program it up from there. Kind of. So, we'll talk about the first proper track, but I gave that as like 6.5 out of 10 as it's a nice little interesting instrumental. I wouldn't skip it, but I don't think it's particularly important. Andrew, what do you think?
When I first heard it, and when I heard it again, it reminded me of Dream Theater's scenes from a memory, where they've got a lot of this tick-tocking and phones ringing and stuff like that, and they're telling the story like this, and it's intriguing because I think these guys are ahead of their time with this kind of tongue-in-cheek British humour, Simon. That's attached to it. I'm going to tell you, it's probably the only British kind of thing about the album. This. Yeah,
I think there's one or two other things, but yeah. Okay.
And I like it. I like it when you situate that into the time 68, 69. Where they wanted to do things a little bit differently. Well, it's got that place, hasn't it? 214 at 214. It's got a beautiful guitar tone. The tone. So and when I heard this 2008, 2009 guys, when I heard that, this is it. When you can hear something, and we've all been there, Brad, haven't we? You can just hear one thing, bang. This is I like this. This is going to get my attention for the whole album, because it had that tone. The guys playing we'll show the pics, but no surprises there. SG, Les Paul, humbuckers there. It's just obvious, isn't it, Brad?
Yeah.
And for that tone, only because it gripped me, Simon, I'm going to give it 7.5 out of 10. And like you say, never a skip, because it's an essential part of the album. Brad.
Yeah.
Without repeating too much of what you guys have already said, I think it's a very interesting way to open an album. Would I have done that maybe back in the late 60s? I don't know. But would you do that today? Probably not. You probably want to come in with a big, strong opening track for the album. But that's not to take anything away from it. I think it sets the mood for the album. And I enjoyed it. I gave it an 8 out of 10, guys, because I thought I put myself in I listened to it over and over, this album in particular this week, not in a complete sitting though, because I've been pretty busy. So I'd listen to half of it, come back to it. But today was the first chance I've had a real chance to listen from start to finish. As we rank these tracks, we rank them as an album and how they're situated. And I thought it set the mood for the album, and there's some real gems to come, and I think it sets it up really nicely. So 8 out of 10 for me, and never a skip.
Okay, so I've been cheapskating on the just the first bit. As I say, I think it's perfectly fine.
I have a tendency to over rank, maybe.
Well, yeah. No, it's fine. It's all right. It's
100 out of 10 usually. You know what is it? 100
yeah. You wait. I've introduced some slightly off left field scoring on this album to make you laugh.
Okay.
So the first proper track, I would say, is the Confusion theme, which is not the Confusion, the Half-Breed, sorry. Which is 6 minutes of basically an instrumental psychedelic blues track. I'm going, if I want to give it a title. Again, a really interesting choice to start the album, a more instrumental kind of thing. I know these things kind of, the thing before it, they kind of flow into each other. And it's not like that, but they kind of cross-fade, don't they? Fades out, and then this one fades in and stuff with some softly plucked guitar, roll of the toms into this kind of a 12-bar blues kind of instrumental. It's just, and also coming in with the Hammond as well, the Hammond organ, which I think is a really important part of this record. We could talk more about it as we go through. I think in many ways, I noted that it's kind of like it's almost like the rhythm guitar of this album in many ways. I know there are sort of two guitars. I know the singer, he sort of seems to play some guitar on it, but this seems to be like one of the major rhythm instrument on this record is the thing in the kind of I know we say it a lot, but he's the most famous, and then taking that Jimmy Smith thing, kind of jazz blues organ thing, and inserting it into this. I think that the first chance, the lead guitar, very sort of Santana like, coming in. Santana with that kind of smooth overdrive, really good tone, really good tone, I think, and I noted also that strong vibrato reminded me very much of John Cipollina from Quicksilver Messenger Service. I don't know how familiar you are with him, but he's got that. I think he actually uses a vibrato arm rather, but he has very strong vibrato, and it's a particularly sort of style that sticks out as unique. It sounds like it's got an SG on it going, and then you've got the stabbing brass punctuations, and a kind of very moody organ solo as well. That's really cool, Hammond organ solo, and it's great. And Keef Hartley doing some fantastic different drumming patterns, throughout the thing. So really cool, and then kind of final guitar solo. And then the brass returns for the fade out. So kind of really cool, atmospheric, instrumental album. I gave it 8 out of 10 and never a skip.
Yeah, I agree with you, Simon. I think it's definitely got something catchy going on there. When I first heard it, I thought of the instrumental break on the Stones album, Sticky Fingers, Can't You Hear Me Knocking, where they got that riffing going on between Mick and Keith, and did the Stones nick it from here? I don't know. It's interesting that you should mention Santana. I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'm thinking you're right. Yeah, because that's exactly what people were saying the Stones were doing with that riff at the end of "Can't You Hear You Knocking" too, as bit of like bit of a put down to it, which I always found interesting. I always thought it was one of the best parts of the song, Yeah. Yeah, but look, if there's some interplay, some weaving going on there, Simon, you know, I why wouldn't Keith Richards and Mick Taylor be listening to this album when it was dropped? Why wouldn't they be? You know.
No, absolutely. Yeah.
You know, they were music fans too. So if they were picking up on that vibe, but what's the Latin? You know, it's not English. It's you know, they've got something else cooking there, Brad. So look, I've given this 8.5 out of 10 because I just like where it's leading me and making these connections that I'm familiar with, which is never a bad thing.
No.
Well, look, the joys of coming in from the back door last. You if you watch this back, Simon, you'll see my reaction when you mentioned the Santana thing. I'm like, he's got my nose. So yeah, look, this on first listen, I'll put here. This track reminds me of something Santana would do. That Hammond sounds fantastic. Raunchy guitar tone, really love it. Nice drumming and bass playing, works really well. You know, without sort of repeating a lot of what you guys have already said, I'll put here interesting opening sort of sequence and track. But I like how this opens the album, sets the mood perfectly. And I gave this 9 out of 10, never a skip.
Oh, wow.
I liked it.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, it's really cool, isn't it? And lest we forget, you know, SG player, and of course Carlos Santana played an SG at Woodstock. So it's
well, look, I'll be honest with you. When I ranked this initially, it wasn't so high, but today I changed my rankings listening to it again. And I always do that every Sunday. I have a listen to the album again one more time before we get on here and do our work. And some albums, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, Jimmy, and the rankings stay the same. But with these more obscure ones, the more I listen to them, the more they grow on me. So, yeah,
cool. Yes. So we got this. We all got the same idea out of it. I think, you know. But I think that kind of subtle with the horn section as well is, you know, you can tell that's where the jazz thing is. But you can also tell there's a kind of, you know, that influence of stuff coming in, which is great. So anyway, the next track is Born to Die, which is the epic track, nearly 10 minutes long, which is you know, and I think this is the first track that actually has vocals on it. And as Jim says, Scottish vocalist Miller Anderson, who came in at the last minute after it had all been recorded and then just did his vocals over the top, because I think they weren't happy with previous, so he just came in and did it all, and I think he's a remarkably good choice. Frankly, he's got a really strong voice, and you know, adds a kind of soulful bluesy, you know, vocal style to this that really suits it, and so it's funny, isn't it, that got these really good players and stuff, and they never really kind of went on to be well known in anything else, which I find a bit weird. But so thanks, Jim, for that, for reminding me he comes from Scotland. It's good. So apparently the song is credited to various people, including Fiona Hewitt, who's at Miller Anderson, writing under his wife's name for contractual reasons. It's quite funny, but it's in 6/8 time. We all spotted that, the old classic waltz blues thing. I love that sort of thing. It's you know, it always cheers me up no end to find there's a thing. As I say, introduces the voice, you know, so there's a bit of singing. There's not a huge amount of singing, is there? It's mainly a showcase for the wonderfully named Spit James. That's clearly an anagram of, or some spoof of Skip James as a name, but his real name's Ian Cruikshank. But you know me, that's the sort of thing that makes me smile, and I love that sort of piece of trivia as a lovely name. I kind of, it's not really a straight 12-bar blues, but it goes off, and again, great tone on the guitar, strong, full, but it's not harsh, is it? It's kind of got that mellow tone, carrying on that kind of Santana tone from the previous track. Anderson's voice is, strong, bluesy, soul-y. It's got all the ingredients that you'd want in it for this sort of a situation from this band. Great guitar fills, lots of reverb, I noticed, and then a kind of lyrical, melodic solo from Ian Cruikshank, which kind of slowly builds over the course of a long time, slowly escalating in intensity. Again, it's the D word. I'm going to use the D word on track 3, the D word, the dynamic word. We didn't have loads of pedals. You had to do dynamics, and that it means you start playing quietly and then you get louder or whatever, and clearly this is a really good example of that. The band very sort of sympathetically playing with him. They don't dominate, but they're in there, playing away, backing him up, giving it that really nice full sound that I think is really good. And then at the end they drop down, and then just come back in again with sort of to a big strong ending with lots of percussion, as it fades. So really, really good track. I gave this 8.5 out of 10. Never a skip.
Awesome. I agree with you, Simon. I think it's a superb track. It's a great contribution from the band members. The key for me though on this track though is the keyboards. It's the underlying foundation of what the song is, and the rock professors mentioned it before. The Hammond organ goes on into a couple of other songs and plays a key part in it, and we've said it before, around this time period, haven't we, Brad? There's been a lot of bands that are playing Hammond organs around this time, and incorporating that into rock and roll music. So, for me, when I heard this, it's not foreign, Simon. I'm not hearing something that's foreign to my ears, but I like the contribution that the band is offering. In their interpretation of how this music and these instruments are being played, and I think this is what's unique about this album, because they're not doing something that, for example, Deep Purple or are doing, and it became apparent to me when I was doing some research, that the jazz background is really, really important, and we can pick that up too as it goes through, especially with Keith and his patterns that he's providing. He's doing something that's, again, not quite rock and roll, but there's some similarities to some other bands, and I won't spoil who those bands are yet until we get to those songs. But I think it's a remarkable track, and it's a nice surprise actually on where it takes us. Hugh is in the chat saying that Born to Die is fantastic. I'm going to agree with him there. I'm giving this a solid 8.5 out of 10. But it's a solid 8.5, if you know what I mean. It's a solid 8.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Brad.
Born to Die. Beautiful bluesy vibes. Great guitar tone. I really, can't say that enough on this album. It's great. Very laid back, driving bass line. Got that nice minor blues feel. The drums are fantastic as well in this song. And the vocals, very bluesy, very emotional, very cool. But the highlight in this, for me, I love Hammond in blues music. And this is 1969. So, you're talking around that time where bands like the Doors were using Fender Rhodes and Vox and all sorts of things. And the Hammond was becoming, popular with Deep Purple and a few other bands at the time, probably a little bit earlier as well with Hammond, and bringing Hammond into blues music was such a refreshing feel, because the majority of the time it would always be guitar-based drums. So the Hammond, in my opinion, just fills another spectrum of sound without flooding the guitar's frequency and the bass frequency, and it sits nicely in the mix and it fills out the overall sound. And if you've got a fantastic Hammond player like this guy, it really works well. There's some epic guitar playing, great feel, the extended solos, and the great ending to the song. Look, without repeating everything you guys are saying about this particular song, I gave it an 10 out of 10, never a skip.
Wow.
Yeah. Well done. Yeah. It's and thanks to Jim. Jim, have a good day, mate. And as he says, great. The show goes off the beaten track, so to speak. So that's,
Cheers, Jim.
I agree. Cheers. Yeah. Have a good day, Jim. Enjoy it later. So anyway, the next track, as you know, I'm keen on these things. The last track on side one is that's what we're doing. Is "Sinning for You," which is another. The track fades in again with this ascending Hammond sequence. The Hammond, again, very important in laying down the melodic structure of the song. That, as I say, and I don't know, it seems to me, instead of the rhythm guitar, in a band without a Hammond, you'd have a rhythm guitar playing this, but it's in this on this album, it's the Hammond organ that lays this down as a thing. You've got Keef laying down some frenetic drums, building up the tension, and then it suddenly goes into a kind of straight ahead shuffle, doesn't it?
Yep.
And he's back, and then and Miles comes in with some strong singing. The verses are completed by that really beautiful kind of ascending brass line that they do, which is really great. And and you've got Ian Cruikshank doing some great guitar solos on the one chord boogie stuff in the middle. Again, I really like the riffing horns. They break in, they add a lot to the track in terms of its excitement and its color and texture. I think the horns are really used really well on this album as a textural thing. Really great bass work. I think Gary Thane, does some really nice driving bass work on this track, particularly, with great impact. And the outro, again, repeating, has a flute solo. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a flute solo at the end, which is really cool. It's really strong closure to side one. I gave this 8.5 out of 10 and never a skip. Andrew.
Yeah, I think this song's really, really interesting because it illustrates how articulate this band is and how clever they are in incorporating the horns. Because we've ranked albums before, haven't we, guys, where we've thought the horns have really intruded into some of the songs or the albums that we've discussed. And I made a note in my mind to talk about one specifically that we did a couple of months ago, and I can't remember. Forgive me. But I like how the horns are incorporated into this. So it's a wonderful achievement for the arrangement, the way that they've done that. I think that's clever. The horns carry that melody really, really well, Simon. And I think this is where the album again provides us with this different branch of seriousness for us to understand why this album is really, really important, because it's doing something that perhaps a lot of these bands aren't doing. And again, Simon and Brad, I'm going to link this back to the Rolling Stones, how they had got, with their classic albums with Jim Price and with Bobby Keys, coming into rock and roll. It starts somewhere, doesn't it? And I'm not saying that it starts here with this album. I'm not saying that, but this is certainly an album where they're doing that, and again, if I'm being lazy by making a connection to the Stones, forgive me. But it's just what I do. I just try and make connections, and because of that, I'm going to give this song an 8.5 out of 10 as well. Clever, articulate song. I don't know who did the arrangement, Simon. Whether it was the horn players themselves, probably. But I'm not going to disregard Keef's ability because if it's his name on the band, clearly he must have been involved in it. Clearly, he's not going to just leave it up to the horn players. Great song.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? And I agree with you. And that, going back to the Rolling Stones thing, it reminds me that the Brussels affair, which is later than this, has those kind of quite subtle horns on it, doesn't it? Sort of not way up front, but just kind of used as a kind of texture, a thickener to the overall sound and stuff, rather than they clearly come out and do a sax solo, Bobby Keys does, or something like that. But in there's a lot of horn playing that's in the backgroundy type thing, holding it down. So I think it's really interesting, and I think that you can feel that big band kind of arrangement stuff coming through on these sorts of tracks, can't you? And using it as a texture, I think is really good.
I just want to jump in here and just acknowledge Phil's comment here about Gary Thane
Morning,
being
Phil.
a good Kiwi, good Christchurch man. So one of my favourite uncles was Uriah Heep Nut. And, that's how I became aware of Gary Thane. Tragic story, died of a drug overdose when he was 27 years old.
Oh, God.
We've got some photos that we're going to throw up of the band, but there's a couple of tracks. I think the next track especially showcases Gary without giving it away. Sorry, Brad, I interrupt you. Sorry, bro.
That's all right. That's all right. You guys are on a roll. You guys are on a roll, and I'm just sitting back enjoying it. It's like I'm a listener in the chat, but I'm here as well. No, in all seriousness, this particular song, I love how the Hammond comes in the intro with the interesting thing how they've done the drums building up with a fade in. So the drums are playing and they're fading the drums in while the Hammond's playing. I thought that was really cool. Won't repeat everything you guys have said. Great vocals. Again, another great solo on guitar. Lots of feel. Can imagine listening to this in a blues club or a jazz club or an outdoor sort of blues festival somewhere. That's what I envisioned when I listened to this song. I was like, imagine what this would be like listening to that at one of those sort of festivals, a small one but intimate sort of setting, or a blues club or jazz club. You wouldn't be able to help yourself but get into the music and be absorbed by everything that's going on there. And as you guys mentioned, it's a flute outro solo, is it? Is it flute?
Yeah, flute. Yeah, it's there. Yeah, flutes. No, it's a flute. Absolutely.
That was something really different, especially when you talk Jethro Tull and things like that. But I just thought they did it uniquely the way they've done it, and I gave the song an 8 out of 10, and never a skip for me.
Awesome.
Yes, one of the things that it struck me was that sort of had it, and I've sort of only it has this kind of traffic connection. Could have traffic. I see there's a line there to traffic. Because Chris Wood played the flute in Traffic and stuff. And,
Stop reading my notes.
Oh, sorry.
It's the next song.
Sorry, Gov. Sorry. Do you,
Andrew, let's start Simon off now and show some pictures before he takes all the rest of them notes.
Chuck him out. Hey, I was going to say,
you've been away for how long and you've taken over the show again?
Hey, I'm only conscious that you guys have been working really hard doing with Steve and all of that, and I know it's getting a bit. Is he turning up or isn't he turning up? Mr. Moulton was getting. But
Simon, we really appreciate it, but nick off reading our notes, all right?
I'll tell you what, it's a bloody big telescope to get from here to New Zealand to read Andrew's notes. I can tell you that for free.
Hi, Jonas. Hi, Alan M.
Good morning, Jonas. Good morning, Alan M. Yeah. guys. Good morning. Do you want to show that? I was going to say, as we reach the end of side one, traditionally, shall we do the photographs?
Yeah, sure.
I'm just
Sure.
going to
Okay,
step
guys,
out a minute, guys. It won't be a minute.
Yep, I managed to pinch some pics off the internet. So the pics this week are kindly sponsored to us, ladies and gentlemen, by this week's clickbait connection. There it is there.
Isn't that a handsome young man on the right?
Do you want to introduce the young fellow that's next to you, brother?
Yeah, that's my wonderful, handsome son, Elvis. He's my rock. He's my best buddy. He's my friend. I was just saying to Andrew, what a blessing it is to have, in a world like today with problems every day we go through and stuff, and day-to-day stuff that can be painful and stuff. You turn around, you've got a young fellow like that that's just is like a continual rock for me. So he's a wonderful young man.
Well done. Thank you for providing this week's clickbait photo, Brad and Elvis. Well done. Back to work. Okay, some pics. Here we go. So this is the cover, ladies and gentlemen.
Mm-hmm.
That is Keith there. It folds out, and if you give me a second, there it is there on the side there. And there it is there on the inside of the album.
There they are.
This is Keith. There he is there. He's got the Starsky and Hutch jersey going on there.
Fantastic. Matching head, a matching hat. Yes, woolly hat.
Yeah, they look like they're outlaws there, don't they?
From the Bayou. Preston.
So there's Keith there playing the drums, and that's the guitar player, Spit James. And I'm going to throw some pics up. This is a gig that they did not far from the Rock Professors' front yard.
Yeah.
So there they are there.
Weren't they set up in the Rock Professor's backyard?
Yeah.
Probably.
On my estate.
Yeah, I thought that was his back shed. His veranda at the back. That's your veranda, Simon. At the back. Wow.
Yeah, before I moved here, yes.
Yeah. That's on your farm, isn't it? Like the back paddock farm, yeah?
Yeah, my estate next to the lions.
They were trying to relive Woodstock because they got left off the DVD and the album.
So there's the horn section, the sax and the horn
trumpet.
player that we've made a connection to another famous rock and roll band, Simon and Brad. Yeah. So there he is. Look at that, Brad. Simon, relatively simple drum kit.
Yes, from the
cool.
Max Weinberg School of Drumming. Yeah, they did a snare, one tom, a bass drum, and a floor tom.
Yep.
2, 3 cymbals. Yep. You don't need any more than that to play rock and roll.
I love that.
Yeah.
So there's the guitar player playing an SG. And I couldn't identify what these amps are behind there. I'm assuming they could be Marshalls or Hi-Watts. I don't know. I couldn't find that information out, but maybe somebody might know. And there's our Kiwi bass player there playing a jazz bass.
Okay. Yeah, cool. But yes, I mean, it's the SG into some sort of Marshall type amp, isn't it? Absolutely. That's the sound for sure.
Can't go wrong, can you?
Can't go wrong. As we've said so often on this show, can't go wrong with that.
And there's the band there. And again, we like this, don't we? They're all pretty well tight in connection there. They're communicating each other with eyes, aren't they? The bass player there is looking at what the drummer is doing, vice versa.
Yeah, they're looking to their leader for guidance.
And that there is a pick off a website too. So I don't know who the musicians are, except for we can tell that the guy wearing the the hat,
Keith.
is Keith.
That's Keith. Yeah. Yeah, it's weird that, isn't it? It's very difficult to identify who the others are because they don't seem to have gone on to do anything much in the way of other bands and being well-known stuff, except Gary Thane.
Correct. And thank you, Brad and Elvis, for sponsoring this week's photos.
Oh, goodness. Well, I have to say, he is a very handsome young man. So, if we're going to use clickbait, then, we might as well use, it might not be on the show, but his offspring from the show. So why not?
Exactly. And so I'm going to put it out there. If you guys are in the chat and you want to be part of sponsoring the photos that we show during the live streams that we do, we'll accept some clickbait photos. So pass them on to me, flick them to the Rock Professor or Brad.
Send through your clickbait photos to Andrew Walton at clickbait@hotmail.com. Yes.
And you can be famous for
milliseconds.
Now, I have to put it out there that because Simon and I don't have access to the StreamYard like Andrew does. We can't throw clickbait up, so we need you guys to help us find clickbait of Andrew. So anyone out there that's a friend or relative of Andrew that can forward on some clickbait of Andrew, and where he's in his Speedos or board shorts, or down the beach, or playing at a gig or something like that, we need to forward them on. Send them to Simon or myself. We'll happily take them, and we'll twist Andrew's
Carl, if you're watching this, Carl, send your pics in.
Yes, we need them. We need them because Andrew
we want people to come back and watch the show, guys. We don't want to be live streaming to nobody.
Or look, the other way around is that we've got John ZD351 to start mocking up some clickbait photos of you with your head on it.
Oh, we have a bit of fun, don't we? We have a bit of fun on this channel, but. Like I say, the clickbait is ours, and if you want to donate some clickbait of your own from the chat, we'll consider it our own too, because you're part of our chat, won't we, ladies and gentlemen? Won't we, Brad and Simon?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, it's all ours.
We'll take all the help we can get, but only from our own audience.
Yeah. We don't go scourging the internet for photos and put that on and say, whoa!
No.
Oh, goodness gracious.
Yes, I agree, John. Oh, dear. Yes.
Oh, dear. We'll rock on.
Anyway,
we'll rock on, Rock Professor.
Let's roll. Yes,
Simon,
let's roll to side two. Quick.
Pull this thing back on the track, Simon, before we derail.
Oh dear. Yeah. Yes. Stop that now. Stop messing about. You see?
It's been a long week for us, Simon. Andrew and I have had our backsides hanging out all weekend while you're off doing your thing,
Yeah. Well, I've been off getting back into work this week. That's been a bit harsh.
I think Andrew and I are a bit delirious. That's why we're off on off the rails a little. You got to compensate and pull us back on, Simon.
Lovely, fantastic. Right, so pay attention. Side two.
Yep.
Side two. Starting off with a song called "Leaving Trunk," which is an adaptation of a song by Sleepy John Estes. I think it's "Milk Cow Blues." Is the adaptation. I did listen to the original of it, which is a kind of pretty straightforward sort of acoustic blues thing, just him and an acoustic guitar. So clearly they've taken it to a completely different place to than that. I did note that also that it was on Taj Mahal's first record. I don't know if you know Taj Mahal's first record. Yeah, which is really good. I got the first four, I think,
right.
Taj Mahal records. Yeah,
Yes.
in much more in the style of this, I think, and I don't know whether they got it from Taj Mahal, but it's sort of that kind of a bit sort of more of that vibe I got from it than that. So it's the great Taj Mahal. If you don't know his albums, check them out. They're yes, it's yes, quite right, John. It has been the longest flip over, hasn't it? So so the great introductory guitar riff that they pan from left to right, right to left, whatever, across this play over there, play over there, play over there. It's a kind of classic 60s, late 60s kind of production thing, isn't it? I mean, I think it is really good. I think it's probably Cruikshank playing both of them, isn't it? I couldn't, so. They do sound the same person playing them. I don't know how you go, but it's really good, and it's, as I say, it's that classic kind of 60s thing where you have a call and response thing with on left speaker and right speaker, which is great. It's got some cool offbeat bass playing and rhythmic organ. Again, that organ being used as the rhythm instrument on this to instead of a rhythm guitar. The two guitars, on the solo, it's really good, clearly overdubbed, and Cruikshank playing two guitars, which is really great. And then you go back to the intro riff, which they reprise at the end, and then and then they have a surprise stop right at the end, and then they come back in, on a kind of unexpected swing beat, and then they fade out, which is really cool. It's a really good use of dynamics, isn't it? Stops, starts, false endings. Those things that you have to incorporate into your songs if you haven't got 1,000 pedals, which they didn't have then. So it's things. I think this is really good. I think Anderson sings really strongly on it as well. I think he was a great choice for a singer on this, and does a fantastic job coming in, late on to do something. I gave this an 8 out of 10 and never a skip. I think a really strong opener to side 2.
Yeah, I agree with you. There's a couple of things about the song in particular, Simon, that I love, and I love that mid-tone punch that we're getting through the guitar. And again, it's very clever how they bring that into side 2. 68, 69, Brad, the power of the guitar, rock and roll, brother. It's really important that you put that somewhere, and they're doing it in the right places on this song. I mentioned earlier on the previous track, that I'm trying to make connections, with some of these songs, and the Rock Professor mentioned Traffic. Rick Gretsch, one of the great unsung is the word. Unsung bass players ever, and we've never done Traffic on this show, and we're going to rectify that sooner. Yeah. Whoever said? Who
said? Yes, absolutely. Who's ever going to run out of albums? Not anytime soon. Apologies to the audience. Not anytime soon.
No. So we're going to be around here for a while, ladies and gentlemen. Dear. But we have done Blind Faith, which is a great show. So go and check that out. So Rick Rich, one of the great, highly respected by his peers around the time, in demand session bass player. So Brad, at that 3:44 second mark, I'm fascinated with what he's doing with the bass, because he's doing Rick Gretsch stuff. He's got this thing going on which is separate from the melody, but also John Paul Jones, who liked to do that. He was doing that stuff in Led Zeppelin 1 and Zeppelin 2. He was doing stuff with that bass, which which we love. So a nice surprise, really, really nice to get this, because we didn't get a lot of that, well, none of that on side 1. So again, this band must have been something remarkable live, Simon, to watch. And again, I'm just going to repeat this again. It's to the detriment that this band it never had decent management. they should have paid to get on to Woodstock. They should have paid the $2,000 to have this band on Woodstock, Simon. Look, I've given this a 9 out of 10.
Yeah.
I've given it a 9 out of 10. I love it. It's a great way to start side 2. It's got everything that I like about a side 2 song. Brad.
Yeah, look, it's a great sludgy guitar tone. It's got like that the intro part, especially that little wound back on the volume a little bit, and gives you that sort of like darker sort of sound. I really enjoyed that. It's a sleazy riff. Great drum build up at the intro where the song kicks in. It really swings and the vocals sit on top perfectly. Great singing. The Hammond in the back filling out all the gaps in the sound and sonically just giving the song more dimension, which is, the best way to describe a Hammond, in my opinion, is if you've got a good player and they know how to vamp and they fill the gaps between the beat and everything like that, that's what you want a Hammond for, and this guy does it brilliantly. Another world-class guitar solo, in my opinion. Very underrated, obviously. This band, they had a lot going on by this point in the album. The gears have shifted and they're on their home stretch, and they're really giving us some really good solid material here. I put here one of my favorite bits was at 5 minutes 10 seconds. It breaks down, then does this double time feel, like a shuffle feel, which is fantastic. It just sort of threw me every time I listened to the song, and they'd get to that. I was like, oh man, I kind of wish they kept that going. But I gave it a 9 out of 10 as well, Andrew, and never a skip for me. Simon.
Wow.
No, absolutely. Yeah. It's really interesting, isn't it? That how they never really, as I say, never really went on to appear on other albums that you've heard of and stuff like that. It's such a strong kind of way of doing it. So a question that occurred to me, Hartley, is how much of this is worked out and how much of it is jammed out as well. I mean, clearly all the basic songs are all put together, but it's difficult to know. Feels like it's kind of worked out really, but I'm sure the guitar solos, he just went for it as a thing. But in the time-honored tradition.
I think that's a great question, but I reckon, Simon, this isn't jammed. There's some juju inside of me tells me that these guys have worked it out, and I don't think that's a bad thing. Sorry for interrupting.
No, not at all. No, I think the answer to my question, was how much of it? Because clearly on some of the albums we do, you can clearly hear that, that there's a lot of jamming out going on, and they're taking it. But interested to see. So anyway, the next track is Just to Cry, which is credited to Henry Lowther, and Henry Lowther is the trumpet player, trumpet, violin, and brass arrangements. So he does all the brass arrangements on the album. And Owen Finnegan. Now, Owen Finnegan was the original singer, I think, before they decided to get Anderson into Anderson to do it. So it's a kind of an unusual piece, really, isn't it? It's got that single kind of repeated bass note, I think, all the way through. Dum, 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 just a very kind of rhythmic thing. It's got kind of Hammond playing 2 chords, just going up and down, kind of vamping over the top of the bass, and that kind of haunting, hypnotic trumpet riff as well. It's really cool. When the vocals begin, Keith is, just ticking away on the hi-hat, not doing very much, just very light kind of thing. And great singing from Anderson again. It's very emotive kind of soul blues voice. In that kind of British tradition, is it, of soul blues soul voices that people like Paul Rodgers and stuff.
Stop that. There's enough now.
Okay, moving on. Moving on from that. Moving on from that. It's got.
I don't want you to make a connection. I don't want you to make any. So
okay, boss. Sorry, boss. Sorry, boss. See what a troublemaker I am. See how well they got on without me. Oh dear. then it's got that sudden kind of choppy accented middle eight that runs out into some fairly smooth jazzy chords kind of thing, showing their jazz roots. And then a kind of light guitar solo, lots of wah wah and echo, and a kind of dreamy, semi psychedelic kind of guitar solo before the verse returns with the trumpet figure as well, which is lovely. And then there's a repeat of the unconventional middle eight, and then that kind of trance-inducing fade out with a double-track trumpet. It's beautiful, excellent, and kind of completely different vibe to it than the thing. But I gave this 7.75 out of 10. Never a skip.
That's an oddball ranking, but okay then.
you wait 7.81. Yes.
Oh, goodness.
As ever, taking it very seriously, especially the scoring. Andrew.
It's interesting that the Rock Professor should talk about that, because here in New Zealand we have this thing called Trade Me, where you sell things, and it always amazes me. I might sell a pedal on there for say $150. I'll list it at $150, and someone will come in and put a bid in there for $151.11.
Yeah. See,
and I'd sit there going, why? Where did this 11 cents come from? Or
it's because they think they're trying to be clever, aren't they? They think that, oh well, if they try to do 10 cents or 25 cents, if I do 26 or 27, I'll still be one ahead of them.
Okay. So that's why the Rock Professor's given us that score, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. Sorry. We're going down rabbit holes, aren't we, on this show?
Really?
What have I? Okay, so the Rock Professor's mentioned something about the vocals. Some of you might be familiar with Blue-Eyed Soul. Blue-Eyed Soul was a movement, Simon, the north of London, the north of England, and this guy here, he's as we've identified, as a Scottish singer. So I'm going, oh, this is what's going on here. This is why this guy is good, because they've got a history of playing, black soul music or black jazz in England for a long time too, haven't they? And a lot of the clubs and a lot of the workingmen clubs as well. So it's not just only blues. So I kind of like that. I love the sophisticated, moody intro on this. I love that. And I think that goes back again to this kind of soul, kind of cool jazz thing, Simon, where you're turning your back to the audience like Miles Davis or something like that, You're just doing your own thing. This is what the song conjures up for me. And I love that delicate solo at the 2-minute mark. You mentioned the psychedelic kind of thing coming in here. I'm going to spill the beans a bit. And the next song, I think, is a continuation of it. But this is where I think that Cream influence is coming into this side of the album. That first two albums that Cream did, there's aspects of that kind of trippiness that's going on. I love making that connection. It sounds like it to me. The next song certainly bears it out a little bit more. Simon, I've given this 8.5 out of 10. Great song.
Well, we're talking about Just a Cry, aren't we? I'm just making sure I'm on the right path. Yeah. Just been down so many rabbit holes. I'm just checking my notes. I'm like, which one are we up to?
Yes.
It's been a long weekend, yeah? Okay. So, look, without repeating everything you guys have said, and Andrew actually I think you've noticed some of the points in my notes here. I don't know whether you got a screen grab and you can see what I've got, but definitely more of a laid back feeling on this song. That bass with the hi-hats feel and the organ vamping, that's sensational. Love that. Sets a real mood. Automatically you're ready for that style of song without knowing what's coming. Sounds fantastic. I love the brass section in the song. Some wonderful wah-wah guitar playing in this song as well. I'm a big fan of the wah pedal, and when it's used correctly, it sounds amazing. The vocals, again, they sound great. I can't really say too much more about this song than what you guys have already said, but I gave it an 8 out of 10, and it's never a skip for me as well, Andrew and Simon.
Awesome.
Yes.
An 8.176.
See, I think we should rechristen the rock professor the rock smart ass.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, you've seen the birth of now the rock professor's score. We know what a Brad score is now, so 8.9533, 7.25.
Yes, rock professor's score. So forensic, the 4 decimal places score. Oh dear. Anyway, so the next track, Too Much Thinking. As this is the second kind of slow blues, again on a kind of unusual 8-bar sequence, apparently, which sets it apart from the norm as a kind of slightly different. And again, I think that's really cool. The kind of, you take that kind of blues thing and just make a twist on it to make it something a bit different, a bit more unique. A beautifully phrased guitar solo over a descending bass line, as it coming in, and brass as well. Really nice use of brass, and just with that simple kind of tick tick on the hi-hat, just holding the time together, but not really doing anything else. Simple stuff, keeping it simple, and not, you've got brass, and you've got bass, and you've got a guitar solo. You don't need loads of drums. It's kind of that kind of classy thing about, oh, look, there's lots of people doing stuff here. I'll just keep out the way. So I think it's, that's really good. Don't need to do busy drums as well. I think that, again, more soulful kind of singing, that kind of blue-eyed soul that Andrew's been referring to. Really good singing, Again, I think he does a fantastic job on this. At sort of 2/8, you've got that kind of jazzy, syncopated build-up that leads us to the violin solo. New instruments coming in, and I think again, at what point, we had a flute at the end of side one. Now we've got a violin. It's kind of just, really nice kind of different colorations to the song that give it some interest, give it some really nice things to do. It's that I really like, and you've got that final verse with the guitar punctuations and those long brass notes long held brass notes that are really nice. And at the end, you've got the brass intensifies before leading into the final 3 chords with the violin reprise. And at the end, so really good, really kind of, that violin gives it a kind of trippy feel, I think, as well, that we had in the last thing. I gave this an 8 out of 10, and never a skip. Andrew.
Yeah, interesting song. I like the Ray Charles horns that are going on. They're doing something with the horns. I like that. That's what I'm hearing. And the strings. When the strings come in, it's like a bit of a shock, isn't it? But I like that laid back groove at the 2-minute 31 part of the song. I like it. It's again, it's a sophisticated song that's showing us again the depth of what this band wants to do for a debut album. Simon, it's remarkable for a debut album. It's again, it's a treat and it's a treasure. And side 2 certainly for me is the strength of this album. The next one especially. Look, Simon, I've given this an 8 out of 10 as well. some nice surprises on this song. Some nice surprises that fit in, Brad, which aren't juxtaposed like way over here. You know, it fits in nice, fits in that sandwich. Love it, bro.
Yeah, this song in particular, so some beautiful guitar playing at that intro. I put here very Clapton at times. You could almost be mistaken to think that it's Eric Clapton. Yeah, playing on this track, more so than the other songs. Very interesting vocal, different feel to it than the previous songs. You know, I guess the other thing here is you can feel the emotion in this song, the lyrical content as well is very emotional. I had to listen to this twice, especially the solo, and I think it's a violin, isn't it?
I'm just going to interrupt you there, and I'm going to show you something because I forgot to say something. I'm glad that you said Clapton because look, I've got creamish start. Yeah, and I didn't mention that.
Yeah,
he's only just written it in. You see how spaced out his notes are.
No. but yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Well done.
So,
yeah.
There's a little bit of you know. Well, I picked that up. You know, first listen through, I was like, and then the second listen through, I'm like, that sounds like Clapton. You know, like I checked the liner notes of to see. You know, I googled and I'm like, is Clapton playing on this track? No, it's not. You know, so. But at times you could mistake it for being Clapton. Whether he intentionally went for that or not, I don't know. Maybe Clapton was an influence. But the brass section on this sounds fantastic as well. And again, that Hammond organ fills out that sound. I gave the song a 7 out of 10. It's never a skip for me.
And again, the horns again come in on that melody on this song. It's again, Brad. So I have to back you up. Yeah, it's a great song. But disappointed you're giving it a 7.
No, I gave it a 7.
Wow. 8.
Do you want me to time myself out?
No, it's all right.
No. It's oh dear. So
I gave 7.98 then.
Oh,
yeah, thank you. Yes,
right.
yeah. Hugh Caldwell gave an 8.1. You see, so his scoring is catching on.
I gave it a rock professor score.
8.2, Brad, for the win.
Oh, nice one to you.
Dear, oh dear. Oh dear, lovely stuff. So, I'm assuming that we're now on the last track, which is "Think It Over," BB King. Yeah, is that right, guys?
Yes.
Yeah. That's fine. That's all right. Yeah. Yes. That's right. Yes, I did list because the one I listened to had a song called "Leave It Till Morning" on it as well, which is slightly confused me for about 4 goes. Yeah.
I think I just went off the original listing, not necessarily.
No, that's fine. That's right. Yeah, me too. But as I say, when I was listening to it, I think the Spotify one I was listening to had this extra track on it, but it took me about 4 goes to realise that it was there. But that's all right. That's fine. So the last track is "Think It Over," which is a BB King song. Interestingly, I think we can all agree that most of the I listened to the BB King original, which is it's quite bluesy, but clearly most of BB King seems to have been taken out of this, and the wah-wah guitar dominates this kind of heavy funk number and owes more than a little to Frank Zappa's "Willie the Pimp." I'm going from Hot Rats. Same sort of riff, minus Captain Beefheart, of course, but
correct.
Again, it's but please, not bad for that by any means. That kind of it's got that kind of 1-chord guitar solo that allows Keith to be busy on the drums, and probably is the closest to a kind of heavy blues rock song on the album, I would say. You know, it's as I say, but its connection to Willie the Pimp kind of redeems it, and that kind of riff as well. Great wah-wah guitar and the bass as well, really good bass that follows the guitar. Again, more great soulful singing. I think, you know, the singing is Miles Anderson singing is he does a fantastic job of doing this, and he's got a nice guitar solo over a kind of organ vamp thing going on, and you've got the guitar pan from left to right, very trippy.
You just have to just steal everybody's names, don't you?
I'm going first. I'm right.
Oh, okay.
You volunteered me to go first. I wrote on the plane home. So see, as you sow, so shall you reap, I think is the phrase. It's again, it goes back to the intro, and ends on a kind of the cool wah-wah guitar. I gave this an 8 out of 10. I think mainly for its association with Willie the Pimp. I really liked it. I really enjoyed it, and the riff sticks in your head, and a really good ending to the song. A really good end to the album. So 8 out of 10 for me, and never a skip. Andrew.
Ooh. Yeah, I'm glad you got the Frank Zappa connection. I did too. And the panning, ladies and gentlemen, to the left or the right, is at the 2-minute 25-second part of the song there that the rock professor didn't point out to you.
failed to point out, I think is what you should say.
But look, we love that, don't we? We love that panning, and the rock professor mentioned it earlier before on a couple of on a previous track. You know that's what they were doing in the 70s, because that was an effect in itself, wasn't it, Brad? You know, they were doing that, and we like that, and that's certainly a product of its time. I love that muscular approach that you've got, Simon, on the song. I love it. I think this is the best track on the album for me. And no surprise, that it's a BB, one of the Kings songs, that they're going to use. I've said it before. I'd love to see how they would have done this live. I'd love to see how they would have done it live. It would have been great. Brad said it too. We love the wah. The wah in itself too is coming into its own as a separate effect, isn't it? 66, 67, 68, 69. This guy's doing something with the wah too that's really, really great. Love it. Brad, Simon, I've given this a 10 out of 10, and certainly never a skip. Never a skip.
Look, Simon, as the title of the song says, I think you need to think it over with your ranking.
Ooh, very good.
Saucer of milk for Mr. Cook.
Very good.
Meow.
This is a great version of this song, and obviously they made it their own. But I love the drumming and bass in this song, and the way that guitar, it sucks you in from the very start. It's got a great tone, great sound, but great playing. Mm-hmm. The vamping organ and the guitar during the verses, like the way they vamp through the verses, it's captivating. The vocals are really strong. They as well suck you in. I love the solo. And after a minute and 11 seconds, the solo's in. Like, we're a minute and 11 seconds into the song, and we're into a solo. So, hey, modern bands, pay attention to the greats. Sure. These guys are greats. Put a guitar solo in there early, because they are important things to put in songs. Okay. Sure. So the guitarist is totally vibing on this song. I think he's totally in his element, and it's some of his best playing on the record, without a doubt. Some interesting panning with the guitar solos you mentioned there, guys. Look, it makes you feel like you're part of that trippiness of the whole era with panning. Gives you that psychedelic feel. Look, I gave it a 10 out of 10, never a skip.
Awesome. You want to renegotiate that score?
Well,
Rock
no,
Professor?
I'm the rock professor. I'm the rock professor, and I'm right. I've had to warn you two in the green room about this. I turn my back, and off you go with your wild, crazy assertions. And
people in the chat and people watching this later, we're going to cop it in the green room from the rock professor now.
Hugh agrees with you. Tasty as
Yes.
pastry. Tasty as pastry.
Oh dear, got this bakery stuff going on in the chat. It's really funny to John.
A great album,
It is.
and
yeah.
You know, good pick, Simon. Great pick.
Yeah. Well, I guess I'm really pleased with it as well as a pick because as I say, I didn't really know it, and I hadn't really. The interesting part to me is that clearly we've gone through it, we've ranked it, and it's clearly a good album. So what do you think stopped it from like really taking off? What do you think is where do you think that one hesitates to use the word? Where do you think it's lacking in terms of it worming its way into the the nation's favourite in some way? Because clearly it hasn't.
I'll tell you why. I read some reviews and people didn't get the horns. It was too early for the horns, I think. The Stones brought the horns in. We mentioned in 71, 72. This is 68, 69. I think the record companies, this is my opinion, wanted just to hear guitars and Cream playing Crossroads. That's what I think. Too sophisticated.
That's interesting.
I agree. I think maybe the record companies didn't necessarily promote them hard enough to get the exposure they deserve. And that might be from what you've suggested there, Andrew. They might not have seen it as a product to push, so they've just kind of left it as a product. Like, we'll just leave this and we'll push the Doors and we'll push, Cream, and we'll push these bands that are getting lots of success, through record sales. And Hughes put their bad management, and I was about to say that. You kind of just jumped in, and thanks for taking my thunder there, Hugh. Obviously bad management, and but definitely, Andrew, you've got a very valid point there. The horns may be too early, or people just weren't ready for it.
Yeah, a bit too sophisticated in a way. Yeah. I mean, yes, if you compare it to someone like it's a lot more sophisticated than Rock in the Fillmore or something like that, which is great record. But maybe you're right. Maybe it is that. I mean, the other band that it sort of struck me as being was Chicago, because Chicago had kind of that horns thing going on doing there and stuff like that. Their early stuff. But they're a bit later, I think. They're just 71-ish, I think.
Yeah, and I think also the thing with Chicago too is they certainly had a pop aspect to their horns, Simon. Yeah. Whereas this album's not poppy. Not pop.
No, it's not at all. No, it's not pop. No. I also think one of the other things that struck me, in a sense, there's a certain element of that. The songs, and they're really good songs, and they're played really well and stuff, but somehow they seem to lack just a bit of magic to enable them to really catch on in a way. I don't know if that makes sense. That was kind of my feeling about it. When you listen to them, they're great, and you think, it's really good playing, really cool, great guitar playing, great arrangements, all of it. And yet somehow there's missing that kind of magic, that one song that would drag them into much more popular territory and make them more popular. I don't know what you think about that as a thing. That's how it struck me.
Look, I think you're right. I think you've hit the nail on the head too. And look, I think it's a marketing thing too. And this is no disrespect to Keith, the Keef Hartley band, a drummer. as opposed to Led Zeppelin. You've got Robert Plant there, and you've got Jimmy Page there. Cream, you've got Clapton. So, you've got a lead singer or a guitar player that you can market your band around. I'm going to go back to what you were saying with bad management. Marketing a band around a drummer in 1968, 69. Don't know. Maybe they were doomed because of, well, not doomed, but in a difficult place because they couldn't market themselves around a guitar player or the singer.
And maybe, well, I mean, they bought the singer in, didn't they, Mars Anderson, at kind of the end to sort of to redo the vocals and beef it up. So, and I think maybe that's one of the other problems is that, in a sense, it wasn't a proper band, if you like. It was kind of a bit more figured out in the studio. And we talked a bit about that, and then he brought somebody in to beef up the vocals. So, in a sense, I think you're right. That if you've got Robert Plant in your band, you've got a kind of you've got somebody who can really hang a whole lot of things on, don't you? Rock god Robert Plant kind of thing. 19 years old kind of thing. All those curls and all of that stuff, bare chest and things. And that clearly, they aren't like that. And I think you're right. If you're trying to market it on the drummer, that's really difficult. And I think if none of the other, and as we've said, none of the other musicians except Gary Thane went on to, particularly as far as I could tell, to do anything in particular, the main guys. And I think that's kind of another kind of signpost to, that they were a good band, they produced a really good record, but there's nothing in there that's a really great song and a really great record.
Cool.
To really do hang yourself. Yes, cheers, Alan. Thank you very much. Breakfast waiting. Good work. So yeah, I'm just interested by that, because clearly it's a good record, and I really enjoyed listening to it, and listened to it more than once, and I've enjoyed it all. But as I say, just missing that kind of that thing that steps it up a level and makes people buy into it in numbers.
Yeah. If you're watching on a replay, ladies and gentlemen, let us know what you think about the album, if you've heard it or the band, and let us know what you think about our theories. If you got to 1 minute 57 on the stream and you want to leave a comment, we'll always appreciate what people think of our theories, our opinions, and remember, that's all they are, just theories and opinions.
Yeah. John Z.D. makes a really good point about Chief Two Dogs of the Hekawi tribe on the cover wouldn't have helped get across what kind of album it is, confused the buyers flipping through the albums in the shop. I think that's a really good point, John, actually. Yeah. You look at the cover, can you divine from the cover what kind of album this might be?
No.
I think it's a really good point. That I think that's goes back to the marketing team. But yeah, I think that is a really good point, and how important covers are in promoting,
compare
what the album's
to,
about.
Led Zeppelin,
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey.
Yeah. Well, there's just that whole thing about
Disraeli Gears.
Yeah, Disraeli Gears, or any of the Pink Floyd stuff with Hypnosis and all of those things. Absolutely.
Good point.
Yeah, that is a really good point, John. Thank you for that. Fantastic.
Ladies and gentlemen, we won't be doing a show next Sunday. I've got some things I have to do that I can't avoid. So we probably won't do anything Saturday too, because Brad's busy. He's got some gigs and stuff like that going. So we're going to have a week off. One of the very few times we don't do anything on a Sunday. We're going to have a break anyway, but I've got some family things to do. Who's the pick for the next?
Is Andrew? Did we tee up with Zach to do Come Taste the Band? Was that weekend?
Correct. I knew there was something. So, Rock Professor, Zach's going to come on as a guest host, and we're going to do Deep Purple's album with
Tommy Bolin.
Yeah.
Come taste the band.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
Now
so,
we can,
Professor, can you please be on your best behaviour and not talk about your version of Dead People being the best version?
I was going to say we could have a proper set to on live about who's right, about which the best version of Deep Purple is. I am, and you aren't.
What I'll do is I'll do a show card up for that, and we'll spend a couple of weeks promoting that. That'll be good. I'm looking forward to what Zach, because he probably knows that album, can probably play that album with his eyes closed. Brad can.
No, not me. Zach can, not me. No, I know the album, but I've listened to it just as many times as I have Machine Head. So
wow. Okay, yeah. I'll do a show card for that. So we'll all be on our best behaviour. You know that when we always get guest hosts on. You're right.
he's been on once. You're right on your best behaviour. You know. He's got the idea of it now.
And speaking about, sorry, bro.
No, I was just going to say, just before we sort of wrap up, I just wanted encourage everyone to go and watch the episode with Zach Zedris as well that we did on Saturday. Well, that was a really fun episode to do. And, I was really glad that we could get Zach on, and he's such a gentleman. And it was a really interesting episode. And if you haven't watched it, head over and watch it. Maybe, Andrew, you can share that link in the attached to this show, so people can go back and watch it.
Absolutely, I'll do that. I'll put that at the start of this, if you're watching, or at the end, whatever's easier. Speaking of guest hosts, too, go and have a look on our channel, ladies and gentlemen. We've got Hugh Caldwell booked in. He's going to be another co-host with us. As you guys know, we'll always make room for anybody that's been in our chat to come on and rank an album with us. And so Hugh has kindly taken up that kind offer, and he's going to jump on with us end of the month, and we're going to do Band of Gypsies. So we look forward to that. That's going to be a cracker album as well. The
25th, if you want to
make
notes for your diary. The 25th, we've got Hugh Caldwell. And before that, we've got, on the 18th, we've got Jim and John are back for part 2. John Coughlin and Jim, whatever his name is. Sorry, I've forgotten his name already. Vomus, that's right. So they're back for part 2 on the 18th of their chat. That should be really cool. So we've got lots of exciting shows coming up, and albums to rank, but also good chats with interesting people as well. So good work, team.
Cool. Fantastic. Greg Sepson is looking forward to you. And look, again, Gretch, if you want to come on, let us know.
Yeah, we really like it. We can help you along. It's fantastic.
Are we out of here, Rock Professor? Are you going to say goodbye to everybody?
I was going to say goodbye to everybody, and we'll be out of here. So thanks to Jonas, Ellen, Gretch Zeppelin, Hugh Caldwell, John, ZD351. All really good comments, guys. Thanks ever so much for your inputs. It's really appreciated. Alan M. Guitar Corner, enjoying his breakfast with a bit of luck. Just scrolling back through. Looking forward to lots of things. Tim Thomas, thank you, Tim, and Nelson Rodriguez, Phil Byers, and Johnny Bean, and Jazz Thunder 50, Jim. He's off doing some jolly stuff. Anybody else I've missed? Ellen, there's Johnny, Tim. I think that's Johnny Heartbreak as well. Thanks, Johnny, for dropping by. Always good to see you. I think that's everybody who commented in the chat. Derek Clacton as well. Thanks, Derek. And Derek will be enjoying it later. So thanks all for great comments and great input. It's much appreciated by us. And we'll see you next week. Not next week, the week after. What am I talking about? Forgotten already. We'll see you the week after.
We'll see you the week after. A couple of
come
things,
taste
ladies
that.
and gentlemen. Thank you to the guys that sponsored this week's photos. That's the clickbait sponsors. If you want to be our clickbait sponsors, please flick us a message or your photos. We're going to make sure that you guys go and check out some pre-orders for 2 books that we're happy to promote. Fleetwood Mac in Chicago by Bob and Jeff. Also, Steve Rosen's book, Tone Chaser. We'll attach links to those books here on our videos too. If you guys reach out to those guys, let them know that the 5150 show sent you. That will help us. Thank you. We're out of here, Brad.
All right. Let's say goodbye. Bye.
Take care, all. Have a good week. Stay safe. Bye. Got to find the button.
No, just get you guys working. See you later.